Back at it again. What happened to our countdown clock, Samantha? All right, seeing a place to be. We're live in New Jersey at the Jersey Shore. Oh, baby, what a morning. How's your day going? It's April 28th, day of the draft here on the State of Football. I'm sorry here. I got caught off a little off guard. We just had a plan, and I'm not prepared for draft day. I've been up since 3 a.m. We're here breaking it down, chopping it up. You're home for real football talk in the morning. Fresh off the Jody Mack and Mac, John McMillan and Jody Mack. I set off a firestorm. First off, good morning. How are you, everybody? I guess is Kayvon Thibodeau a generational Z? I don't know. I was just quoting a GM saying that Kayvon Thibodeau is the first millennial athlete, and the whole chat room got on me about that. So everybody's coming at me for that. Then I said, hey, the Eagles might take Malik Willis. And we set off another firestorm there on the Eagles Birds 365. Big shout out to Jody Mack, who I've been doing for over a decade long. Hey, it's going to be a jam-packed show today. Again, RIC and a place to be. Rick Saratella telling it like it is when it comes to football, especially the NFL draft, celebrating 20 years of independent scouting on the NFLDraftBible.com and Sports Illustrated. And keep it locked at SI.com. I'll be with Albert Breer and Robin Lundberg. We'll have live draft reaction throughout the whole week. I'm getting there. I got the haircut last night. Shout out to Mom. Go to the website on SI.com. I'll be getting the shave. We'll be getting polished up, and we'll be talking football. That's what we do here. But today, in just a moment, we're going to have Lorenz Leinweber, of course, of NFL Draft Bible and the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. We'll talk about some of the NFLPA Bowl guys. We also have our buddy Ed Kracz right down the parkway here from the Eagles Today on Sports Illustrated, talking some more Eagles chit-chat. I'll ask him what he thinks about the Malik Willis scenario. Neil Stratton, been too long, CEO of InsideTheLeague.com and all the great things he's got cooking from the agent and scouting standpoint. We'll also have the draft ninja, Bo Marchionte, checking in from Ohio with all the latest and greatest interviews that he's been conducting. And then Nick Fierro, buckle up, man. It's 2 hours of power. Nick Fierro is going to be bringing that fire up from Buffalo as he covers the Bills Central here on SI.com. And then keeping it in-house, all familia, another one of our SI men on the beat, Howard Balzer. We got an H-bomb alert later on coming on in the show. Howard Balzer will be breaking it down, of course, all Cardinals publisher, but also a longtime NFL insider, in fact, the pioneer who covered the first ever NFL draft on ESPN. And here we are covering the 2022 NFL draft in Las Vegas. Man, thank you so much for waking up with me today. All my chat room people, where you at? Where you at? In the front, in the back. Let's bring on Lorenz Leinweber, our senior scout here at the NFL Draft Bible, and really the star of the Draft Bible. This is your time to shine, Lorenz. You've been doing all the work behind the scenes, the film room breakdowns, the scouting reports. What are we at? Like almost 700 now up on the website. How you feeling this morning?
Yeah, already grinding on that 2023 film. But, man, you know it's draft day, or I know it's draft day when I'm trying to throw on that film, and I'm just too excited. I just can't focus on that. You know, I can do it 364 days of the year. There we go. But on draft day, on the first round of the draft, it's just, especially this year, I feel like it's so unpredictable. I'm just too giddy. I'm too excited. And I can't wait for tonight. And also, what a lineup we have today on this show. I'm really excited to be a part of it. And, the draft of 3 days is just the best time of the year, in my opinion. So I'm fired up.
And the beautiful thing is, you know, Lorenz will be providing all his draft analysis on the NFL Draft Bible Twitter. He'll be doing the Twitter takeover day 1 and day 2. I'll be on SI.com duties with Albert Breer, and Lorenz will be breaking it down and chopping it up over on the Twitterverse. So make sure you keep it locked over there. As he mentioned, we got a jam-packed show for you here today. We're just getting started. We're just getting underway. And, you mentioned a lot of unpredictability in this year's draft. I will say my final mock draft dropped late last night. I think for the first time, Lorenz, I think we actually have a little bit of clarity, and Vegas is staring us the way. And I mentioned this on the Birds 365 show. Like, in the first time, we have all these in-depth draft prop bets and all these different odds flying around. You can't ignore it because Vegas has a pretty good track record. Suddenly, sharp money shoots in on Trayvon Walker to be the first pick. Suddenly, Derek Stingley, sharp money to be the Texans pick at number 3. And, people are laying a lot of big time bucks on this. So, I mean, if we read the tea leaves, it sounds and looks like Trayvon Walker out of Georgia going to the Jaguars. It sounds like Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive end from Michigan, going to his hometown Lions. And it sounds like, Derek Stingley to the Texans. And I find it too hard to believe that the Jets would bypass a talent such as Kayvon Thibodeau. And then we hear Giants love Charles Cross at 5, which means the Panthers would then have to take Evan Neal, and then the Giants get their guy with Sauce Gardner. So I just broke down the top 7 for you. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, let's start at the top. It's all looking like it's going to be Trayvon Walker, which I'm really excited about. That's one of the guys I've been on for a long time. He's been sort of the guy that's been talked about as, hey, this guy has had the biggest pre-draft process and ascension and whatnot. I mean, for him to rise all the way up to being the first or second overall pick, I think if he's not the first overall, which he's probably going to be, he's going to go number 2. And then at number 2 with the Lions with Aiden Hutchinson, I feel pretty confident in that as well. But after that, is it going to be Stingley? Is it going to be a tackle? Is it going to be a Kemakwanu maybe? Or is it going to be Sauce Gardner maybe even? That's who I thought 2 days ago when I was doing my mock draft. Now Derek Stingley suddenly, and you're right, you got to listen to Vegas. They always get this pretty well. But that's I mean, the draft really starts at 1 this year, but at number 3, that's really unpredictable. Then with the Jets, a lot of chatter about them loving Jermaine Johnson. Now, there's also going to be tackles on the board. We all heard about the Mekhi Becton story, how he might not ever play for the Jets again. So do you have to go tackle? I don't think you can wait till 10 to take a tackle. So how married are you to getting that new left tackle? I know Robert Saleh, he's going to be pounding the table for a pass rusher, because how did his defense work in San Francisco when they were dominant? They had 4 dudes and then some depth that could get after the quarterback. So it's really, really exciting. It's tough to predict. I'm really curious. I mean, if Derek Stingley goes at number 3 to the Texans, that would still be a shocker to me. Not because of his talent; he's uber talented. But you talk about the last 2 years that he had in college football, had some injuries, had some questions about commitment. That would be a big one and a gutsy one for Nick Caserio there with the Texans, who they're one of the teams that have 2 first-round picks. I think that's another storyline of this draft. How many teams get two bites at the cherry, so to say? You're muted. Gotta get the mic.
For the first time ever, we've had 2 teams with 2 first-round picks. Or, I'm sorry, 8 teams with 2 first-round picks, 8 teams with 0 first-round picks. I think you're going to see a lot of wheeling and dealing. For the record, my big board looks like this. In terms of best player available, I've got Kayvon Thibodeau 1. I've got Derek Stingley. I got Derek Stingley 2. I think he's a cornerstone piece. I've got Ike Ekwonu 3. I think he's got the most upside of all 3 offensive tackles. I've got Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame 4. And then, those are my 4 blue chip players. I could state an argument at number 5 for a lot of different guys. I'd probably just go Evan Neal for today because I think he's a safe play. I think Evan Neal checks off every single box. Who are the Lorenz line with top 5?
Yeah, I mean, at the top, I think purely going off of film grade, I'd even go with Kyle Hamilton if you're just ignoring position of value and everything. I think he brings the size, he brings. I mean, really on film, there's a bit of short area quickness that you can nitpick, a couple of angles that he takes that are maybe a little bit too aggressive. But this dude is physical. He's a playmaker. He's my number one. I think he's going to be a plug and play Pro Bowl type player at the next level, albeit at safety, which the NFL hasn't valued as highly in the first round. Next, I'll go Kayvon Thibodeau at number 2. At number 3, I'm actually going to go with Evan Neal. I think Evan Neal, with the size that he brings, he's at 6'6", he's 340 some pounds. He's an elite athlete at that size, 3-year starter at Alabama. Really, really tough to make an argument against him. And after the top 3, it gets tough for me. I think you can slot someone like a Trayvon Walker in there, the defensive end out of Georgia. I think he has rare traits. He's the guy in this class on the defensive side of the ball. If you say, hey, if you want to gamble on getting an elite difference maker maybe in 2-3 years down the road, he can be that guy. He has that type of upside. Still a couple of things to iron out, and obviously the Jaguars, you got to hope they'll have some coaching stability there if they take a shot on a guy like that. And then 5th, I'm going to go with Charles Cross. I think the offensive tackle out of Mississippi State, his athleticism and then his ability in pass protection. Look, at the end of the day, my offensive tackles, I pay him to pass protect. And to me right now, he's the most ready one out of the entire draft, now the top 3 in pass protection. I thought his technique, really even watched him as a freshman, was excellent. Really rare to see for a guy that young. But then he kept adding weight. He kept that athleticism, kept that foot speed, and I think he can come to the league. And as tough as it is as a rookie, as a guy as young as he is, can be a starting left tackle and be a quality one at that in pass protection. And there's going to be a number of suitors. You just talked about it. If he's there at 6, I think the Panthers love him. But if the Giants love him enough, might end up being a top 5 pick.
Well, the word out of Jersey over here and the Jersey swamp meadowlands of East Rutherford is when they brought in Charles Cross, they put him through a battery of right tackle drills, and they came away so impressed that he just kind of sealed his fate. And I've been crazy with it. The last time I checked, I know yesterday was the deadline. I heard the Giants did want to pick up Daniel Jones' 5th-year option, and it came down to whether John Mara was going to accept it or not. But to your point, if you're going to pass protect, which Daniel Jones needs a lot of help, even with all the offseason acquisitions there in Giant land, it's hard to argue with the pick. Sometimes players are every time players are rated differently or higher depending on which team you are and what scheme you play. And for the Giants, they value Charles Cross. For me, I'm not picking for any particular team. I just love the upside in Ike Ekwonu. And so we'll see how it all unfolds here in, about 8 hours or so. What are we at? 9 and change, 9 hours and 45 minutes, keeping it locked here on the NFLDraftBible.com. Shout out to all our chat room people. Tom Goodhines, good to see you, man. Happy draft day. Stay safe out there in Las Vegas. Don't do anything I wouldn't do now, because I saw the setup. Cynthia Freeland tweeted a picture of the whole, what do they got? The gondolas there. They're going to bring the picks out on. I said, who's going to be the first player in the pool today in the water over there? And my money's on Gronk, because I know Gronk is out there circling like a shark doing media appearances. I have a feeling at some point he's going to find his way onto that stage and into that water, Lorenz.
So here's what I'm pounding the table for tonight. I need Jordan Davis, after he gets drafted, to do sort of a cannonball, whatever you want to say, into the water. That'd be great to see for a dude that big. And just someone who, if you see some interviews with Jordan Davis, how funny he is. I don't know. I'm with the Gronk thing, but if we could get a real big guy jumping in there, that'd be a lot of fun as well.
Or I just love to see like a belly to belly, like just bump Godell right into the
Oh, that would be awesome.
Like Leonard Williams picked him up and bear hugged him. What if he just came over and just gave him a little boop?
just got to make sure you don't get suspended or something like that. So
All right, Lorenz Lineweber here with Rick Saratella. We'll be live each and every day here on the State of Football, part of the Fan Nation Network on Sports Illustrated. And another individual who is part of that familia is Eagles Today publisher Ed Kracz, joining us on the State of Football. Good morning, Ed. How are you today?
Hey, fellas. Good to see you. I love the cannonball talk from Jordan Davis there. Listen, he better do it now, because when he gets drafted, they might want to write that into his contract that you're not allowed to do cannonballs into any body of water for fear of injury, and so he might as well get it out of his system now if he can.
I was going to say, speaking of Jordan Davis, he's one of the rumored picks here for the Philadelphia Eagles. And, of course, Eagles Today, part of the Fan Nation Network on Sports Illustrated. Check them out. And Ed is doing a great job there. And before we get into it, by the way, I had a chance to link up with Ed at the Combine in Indianapolis, albeit a short time, but it was a fun time. Yeah. And we had a good time out there, Eddie.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was great to finally meet you, Rick. I mean, I know we've talked many times via this technology, but it was great to meet you. It was a fun time, and it was I want to say it was a late night for an older fellow like me. It was
a little bit.
Went a little long, but yeah, I had a great time. It was really nice to meet you.
How about Howard Balzer, though? He's a legend on and off the field. Because guess what? After we left you guys, we went to another establishment.
Yeah, I think we walked to that establishment, and you went in, and I took a left, and I had to get back. It was late for me, but yeah, Howard hanging in there, man.
Yeah,
props
man.
to him.
The H-Bomb will be joining us later on in the show, and good friend Nick Fierro will be on later on. So we were all hanging in Indy. And now we're all buckled up. What year draft for you is this covering, Ed?
This would be 12 straight years. This will be my 12th straight year doing it. And there was a couple times before that, kind of as like, the sidebar guy, the man on the street type story writer. So probably maybe 14 or 15 years, but 12 straight for sure.
Nice.
It's a crazy draft, I gotta say. I can't remember anything like it being so unpredictable as this one is going to be.
It is a crazy draft, and we're going to get into some of those scenarios with Ed Kracz here, the State of Football, Rick Saratella, Lorenz Lineweber. Lorenz, go ahead. I'll kick it off to you, man, because we can go. The Eagles obviously have 2 picks here in the first round, several needs. They can go a lot of different directions. Which way you want to go with Ed here?
Yeah, Ed, first of all, thanks for joining us. Really excited to talk some Eagles today. Let's get to those 2 picks. I think there's a likelihood for where we're just seeing it right there. Could they be exploring a jump into the top 10, but also could they be trading back out with one of those picks? What do you think is most likely? Do you think they stay put? Do you think they trade around? And what are some targets that you think they're going to end up eyeing if they do trade up?
Well, Howie Roseman's the wheeler and dealer of his generation, if you will. I mean, he has made 6 trades in the first round throughout his tenure in Philadelphia, which is a lot. And they don't count the deals that they make before the draft, like the one he made with New Orleans, where he was able to get a first round pick, another one next year from the Saints, and a second round pick in 24. So, he's going to want to move around, Lorenz, and I think the ideal scenario for him would be to trade up from 15, maybe a couple spots, and then with that 18th pick, trade back, maybe late first round, or see what you can get in the second round, because, that's kind of where I think the strength of this draft is. And, maybe I'm wrong, but I seem to look at the, that second, third round range is where you're really going to get some good players. And the more picks you have in that territory, I think the better chance you have of finding successful picks. So I could see in Howie's mind, the perfect thing is to move up with 15, move back with 18. But again, it takes 2 to tango. He's usually pretty good at finding guys to tango with. But that's a tricky exacta, if he's able to pull that off to move up and then back. But that's what I think he would like to do. But if he stays put and lets the draft come to him at 15 and then maybe explores a look back, I could see him doing that too. So a lot of ways you can go with this, and there's certainly enough targets that we can talk about if he were to do that, move up a little bit or stay put or move back. But certainly there's a lot of names we could put out there with some of these picks the Eagles might make.
It reminds me of an old Aaliyah song, back, forth, and forth. But that's a story for another day. And,
Is this the karaoke portion of the show?
Yeah, right.
I can nail that.
Hey, we gotta entertain here a little bit too. Hey, so if they were to trade up, I would think it's probably for a wide receiver. And I understand that the Falcons at 8 are locked in. Calvin Ridley out for the season with the gambling deal. They need a wide receiver. The Jets at number 10 are a pretty odds-on favorite to take a wide receiver. So, two-part question. If they are trading up, is it for a wide receiver? And if so, can they get high enough in front of those teams? Because I'm looking, are they really going to make a trade with the Giants at 7?
Yeah, well, there's some talk about that. The Eagles and Giants, obviously NFC East rivals. They don't trade very often, but the Eagles made draft day deals with the Cowboys in each of the last 2 drafts. Last year they traded up to number 10 to get Devontae Smith. Rick, I think they really wanted one of the 2 cornerbacks last year, J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain, who went 8-9 to the Panthers and Broncos. And had they been able to get up in ahead of those teams, and I think maybe they didn't think they were going to take a cornerback back-to-back like that, but I think had they gotten up a little bit higher, they would have taken a cornerback. So part of me says if like an Ahmad Gardner, Sauce Gardner sitting there, or even a Derek Stingley, I know they like both those guys a lot. If those guys are sitting there at 9, I don't think Sauce will be. He's probably off the board by 4 with the Jets. But if Stingley's sitting there after the 9th pick, Joe Douglas with the Jets and Howie Roseman have a history. They work together in Philadelphia. Maybe they put a deal together where the Eagles send them maybe a 3rd round pick, and they have 3 picks in the 5th round. They could send them a 5th rounder to move up 5 spots and grab Stingley. But, a receiver, I could see him taking a receiver. I'm not sure if Jameson Williams is there. Maybe they trade up to try to get him. I know they like him a lot. But, listen, 2 trade ups in the 1st round and back-to-back years for a wide receiver, man, that's a road never traveled before, and I'd be surprised to see it. I think if they went up a little bit, it would be for a corner. If Stingley's there, maybe Kyle Hamilton, a safety. They've never taken a safety in the 1st round in their history. Brian Dawkins was the greatest safety to play in Philadelphia. He was a 2nd-round pick back in 1996 out of Clemson. But Hamilton's the kind of guy that would fit great in Jonathan Gannon's defense. So, if he's sitting there after 9, maybe they try to make that move to get Hamilton. And, of course, Jordan Davis. Everybody knows the Eagles are enamored with that monster 6'6", 340-pound dude from Georgia. The Eagles D-line does need some help. Fletcher Cox kind of on the last, he's a 1 year-to-year type player. Now they cut him earlier in the offseason, brought him back on a 1-year deal. So, how much longer does he have in Philly? Javon Hargrave's a free agent. Then you have a 2nd-year kid in Milton Williams. But that's it, really, for depth on that D-line. So Jordan Davis will be a home run pick for the Eagles. If he's sitting there at, 12, 13, they're going to probably have to get ahead of the Ravens at 14 because I think the Ravens would take him. So if they bump up a little bit, maybe with the Texans at 13 or the Vikings at 12, then maybe it could be for Jordan Davis.
Howie Roseman's the master of wheeling and dealing, as Ed alluded to. Ed Kracz here, Eagles Today, part of the Fan Nation Network on Sports Illustrated, joining us with Rick Saratella along with Lorenz Leinweber. A lot to unpack there, a lot I want to follow up with, but I know we're up against it, so I'll kick it over to Lorenz. What else you got for Ed here?
Yeah, we talked about the need at cornerback. Wide receiver makes a lot of sense, especially with Howie Roseman picking in the 1st round. Seems to be a bit of a theme there, especially with that 2nd pick. Maybe I'm seeing a couple of defensive ends marked to them as well. I know they have a lot of money invested in the position, but could that be a direction in which they decide to go on the 1st day of the draft?
An edge rusher, you mean? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they re-signed Derek Barnett, which was a bit of a surprise. The market didn't develop for him, so they brought him back on a 2-year deal. I probably like Barnett a little bit more than most fans in Philadelphia. But I think they addressed it in free agency with Hassan Reddick as well, kind of a pass rush specialist. Whether you call him a linebacker or a D end, bottom line is he can rush the passer, he can pressure the quarterback. So, in my opinion, you can never have too many of those guys, Lorenz. This league, that's probably after quarterback and left tackle, probably the 3rd most important position on the field is that edge. And you could even make a case it could be the 2nd. But, I think, listen, if Jermaine Johnson falls, I'm not sure he will, or if the Eagles do make that monster move up the board like Rick mentioned with the Giants, or the even the Panthers could be in play at 6. If Kayvon Thibodeau's there, maybe he's the guy. Maybe he's the edge rusher. But if they let the draft come to them at 15 and George Karlaftis is there, I don't think there's been a lot of buzz surrounding the Eagles and Karlaftis, and maybe that's by design. They don't want to tip their hand. But I like Karlaftis. I got to know him at the combine a little bit, and terrific kid. Love his energy. Love the personality, the leadership ability he has. But I'm not sure the Eagles do at 15, and they might not take him at 15. But keep an eye if they move up. They could be eyeing Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you've got your finger on the pulse better than I do, Ed. I actually had Karlaftis going there just because of the need, and I think he's a traditional hand in the dirt 43 guy, and I happen to like George Karlaftis a lot, but I get it. He's not the sexy pick. He's not that spinorama, crazy, agile, bendy guy that has twitch coming around the edge, so he kind of loses some of the luster in the media coverage. But I don't know. Scouts I talked to love this kid. I know there's conflicting reports about where he might land. I think he would make a lot of sense for the Eagles. Now, something that Mac crushed me this morning for not making sense. And, we ran it by Baldy on the show here yesterday. And that's, the Eagles have all 5 of this year. There's 5 quarterbacks potentially in the first round conversation. The Eagles reportedly have all 5 quarterbacks graded ahead of Jalen Hurts, and they have come away convinced that Malik Willis is head and shoulders beyond a better thrower than Jalen Hurts. And I mean, this guy has incredible ball velocity, 10 miles per hour, more than Josh Allen. That's a rifle of an arm. And call me crazy, but I've seen Howie Roseman subscribe to the Bill Walsh philosophy, draft a quarterback every year. He flips guys like Sam Bradford and Carson Wentz. And as you know, Ed, having more than one good quarterback is also equal to having equity. So if you had Hurts and you had Willis and you groomed them for a year or two and you got Minshew in house, suddenly, Hurts would be a commodity. Call me crazy. Baldy said I'm not. Mac said I am. I set off a firestorm in the chat room. Like, who is this clown? He doesn't know what he's talking about. What's your take with Malik Willis?
Yeah. I'm not going to call you crazy. I would never listen. Howie is so unpredictable. He subscribes to crazy, I think, sometimes in the draft, some of these picks that he makes that, Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson and trading up to get Andre Dillard, who they had started to slide a couple years ago. They took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the second round over DK Metcalf. I mean, I'm not going to call you crazy because I think Roseman does get a little crazy sometimes in the first in this draft, and he could take a quarterback. A lot of us after they made that trade, Rick, with New Orleans was when they got the extra first round pick next year. We thought, well, you know what, they're going to go for a quarterback next year if they need one. But so we took our eye off that quarterback ball, so to speak, and we got away from the quarterback. But listen, I like Kenny Pickett in this draft as a win now type of guy. I think he'd be a smart pick for Carolina. Matt Rule kind of being on the proverbial hot seat, having to win. Pickett gives you that chance. Maybe he unseats Darnold, or if Darnold struggles, then you put Pickett in. So Malik Willis to me is a good kid, right? He's got he's a leader. He's a guy that everybody seems to think will need that time to develop. And Jalen Hurts is the kind of kid where I don't think he's going to be phased if the Eagles were to take a quarterback in the first round. Hurts is a keep your head down, keep working kind of guy, takes nothing for granted, wants to get better each and every day. And I don't think that would phase him at all. In fact, I think he would welcome him with open arms if they were to take Malik Willis or Desmond Ridder or whoever else you want to throw in that mix there. But, man, 15 for anybody but Willis or Pickett would seem awfully high for a quarterback. And wouldn't surprise me, Rick. You're not crazy. I'm not going to call you crazy at all, even though I've met you now and I know you are a little crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. But listen, it could happen. And, man, wouldn't that be a shocker?
Yeah, well, maybe not. But I'll tell you, it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. And I know you'll be keeping all the Eagles fans locked over at Eagles Today. Tell the fans at home what you got lined up, where they can find all your work.
Yeah, well, I'll be putting everything on Twitter at Kracz E, Kracze. You can find all the links. And like you mentioned, one of the Macs that you were on the show with, John McMullen, he will also be, I'll be tweeting out his stuff. He and I team up together to cover the Eagles. Him and I will be down in South Philadelphia Thursday night covering this thing. Man, if they trade back, that last pick is going to be real late if it's a late first round pick. But we'll have it. We'll have everything you're going to need right there. John and I, we're going to be drinking lots of coffee. I'm going to take a nap later today, and I'll be in South Philly later tonight.
Yeah, get the espresso martinis ready, baby. Ed Kracz, Rick Saratella, Lorenz Lineweaver here on the State of Football. Ed, always a good time. Appreciate all the insight, and I'm sure we'll chat here throughout the week. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Good luck. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Ed.
That's Ed Kracz, Eagles Today. Nobody covers the Eagles better, and good friend of the show. Had a chance to catch up with him in Indianapolis like I did with you, Lorenz, out in Pasadena. I don't even have to ask you or our next guest if I'm crazy. I know you guys can all co-sign that. Neil Stratton, CEO of InsideTheLeague.com, joining us here on the State of Football. Good morning, Neil. How are you today?
I'm doing great, guys. It's good to be back. I'd say we're all crazy, especially today, especially this week after, the fast, furious finish, getting ready for the week and all that kind of stuff. And I guess now we get to sit back and watch it all happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be a little bit crazy to work in football. It takes an extraordinary amount of time away from your family, on the road, traveling. And Neil, you've done this. What year covering the draft is this for you, by the way?
This is 22. I can't believe it, but yeah, or maybe 21. I'm not good with math. We launched in 02 and we followed it that year. So I think this makes it 21. We're right around there. 2 decades. Let's say that.
Yeah, man, we're right around neck and neck. That's awesome, brother. Ed this is his 12th consecutive. Lorenz, this is what, like 2 or 3? We're birthing you, huh?
This is second year with Draft Bible. Neil, good to see you. Haven't talked in a while. Excited to chop it up a little bit on draft day.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, we missed you last week, Neil, and so I know you're crazy. You're going crazy 1,000 miles per hour, and given the industry spin over on InsideTheLeague.com, if you're not a member there, that's not too late to subscribe. This is the best week to do it. You'll get Neil's inside access to the scouting world and really the agent slant and covering the agent industry like nobody out there is. And so what's the latest and the greatest over on InsideTheLeague.com?
Well, we're just trying to kind of catch our breath. It's been a pretty fast and furious week. On Monday, we had a Zoom with about 30 or 40 rookie members of the agent class. We had 2 former scouts, Brian Zekis, formerly of Washington, and Roderick Davis, formerly of the Falcons. We broke down the UDFA process this week. We talked about, kind of when the calls start, what to know, what happens if you are an agent and you take a deal from one team, then you go to another team and take their deal, what are the recriminations for that. How does it work? I mean, are you gonna be talking to position coaches? Are you gonna be talking to scouts? What happens if they don't call? What happens, if it's Sunday and you don't have a deal? How do you try to revisit things there? Every odd and end of the UDFA process. Heard some pretty interesting stories. So that was Monday. This week we always try to trot out the alma maters of all scouts and all position coaches, and we posted the alma maters yesterday. For scouts today, we'll do coaches. It's an important part of the process when you have a player that's kind of bottom of the draft class and you're going to be looking for a deal on Saturday. You want to know where your players' alma maters are, or as far as where they have people kind of placed with teams, because believe it or not, that comes into the conversation. That's one point that both Brian and Roderick made on Monday. So we have kind of rolled that out there. Tomorrow, Friday wrap. I'm losing my dates here. We'll look at the draft, from the first day from every angle. We'll look at kind of what agencies won. We'll look at which mock drafters were most accurate about the first round and every other angle there. But I think the thing I'm most excited about this week is in our Succeed in Football post, our blog, we've talked to 3 former directors of college scouting. On Tuesday, it was Jeff Bauer, who was with the Jets. Yesterday, it was Greg Gabriel, who's been with the Giants and the Bears. And today it'll be Blake Benningfield, formerly with the Titans. They will all look at the Saints draft. And the Saints, as you know, Rick, kind of close to my heart. But also they're kind of interesting because they have 2 first-rounders. And they were the odd team that kind of said, yes, we're going to look at this draft class and try to build the team off of it. You know, they gave away draft capital next year for picks in the first round this year, and they weren't marquee picks, 16 and 19. So we had three guys who actually used to put their own boards together and run the draft for teams that have looked at the Saints situation, where their vacancies are, what they need to do, and they've kind of made their best guesses on which direction the Saints will go. And so that's been an interesting those have been interesting features so far. Looking forward to posting Blake's today, and then getting it on tonight, and just kind of charting all the picks and walking right through tomorrow for the Friday wrap, and then Saturday. I mean, Saturday, especially for geeks like us, day 3 is kind of when we all love it. You know, I mean, watching the guys slide, seeing who's going to not even be drafted, seeing which guys didn't go to the combine but do get drafted. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it. They're really weird, like the three of us are. So it'll be a fun weekend as always. And it's Christmas. It's Christmas in April.
No doubt about it. Neil Stratton, CEO of InsideTheLeague.com, here with Rick Saratella, Lorenz Lineweber, and I know some guys in the chat room who got the sickness as well. I see Craig T. Smith joining us in the chat. Good morning. Zach Petraw, the Prez, who's really holding it down on the NFLDraftBible.com. Coach Jimmy Johnson checking in from Indianapolis. Of course, Zach in Minnesota. Craig up north in Canada. We got Tom Goodhines out in Vegas. John Raspberry, I'm betting you're in Louisiana with a Chauncey Manac question. We'll get to that one later on in the show, but big shout out to all the chat room people. And Neil, for our listening audience at home, you mentioned the personnel articles on the Saints picks. Where did you say, is that on Succeed in Football blog?
Yeah, our discussions with the college directors is on the Succeed in Football blog. It's totally free. Anyone can access it. I encourage you to check them out. There are details on our Twitter at Inside the League, and so you can kind of go there and look at those. And they all go into great depth on what they would do if they were the Saints. Blake Bedingfield, again, formerly of the Titans, longtime friend of ITL, who's also been a guest on this show. He'll weigh in today. And so, I guess 3 kind of different angles on this is what makes it interesting to me. And again, these are people who've actually been in the room. They've actually done the work. As much as mock drafters follow the game, and a lot of them do a really great job, these are people whose jobs were on the line when they were making their picks. And I think that gives a little bit more currency.
No, I'm going to be looking forward to dig into that, because you said it's not really marquee picks at 16 and 18, but this draft is so weird that there could be the first quarterback still on the board there. So I'm going to be curious to see if any of those guys went in the quarterback direction. Now, before we welcome on the next guest here, Neil, give us what does the Neil Stratton draft week look like? Where can people find out what you're doing, what you're up to? Give us the goods.
Well, best thing to do, I think, is to go to our Twitter. You'll find the link to sign up for the Friday wrap, which is read by about 6,000 people across the industry, including both of you gentlemen. We're glad to include y'all in our distribution list. Scouts, agents, marketing people, professionals of every stripe. Read the wrap. Obviously, we've got our blog posts that are out there. And then if you're really into the game, you're really interested in how the business works, and come to the mothership, InsideTheLeague.com. Come check out what we're doing. We've got some new projects that we're working on that are coming online, hopefully within the next few weeks. We'll be back to talk about those later, Rick, when they're a little bit closer to fruition. But yeah, and then next week, I think a big point to make is we cover the hiring and firing and the scouting industry top to bottom, head to toe. And that's what we're really digging into next week. Next week is actually a busier week for us than this week is, because we're expecting changes in a lot of scouting departments at the area level as well as at the director level. We've heard a lot of rumors, a lot of rumblings. We know the Jags will be making a big hire immediately in their a senior hire in their scouting department. We know the Raiders will be making a big move with someone from the Dolphins. So these are all the things we'll be previewing and talking about next week. It's going to be, the excitement doesn't end on Saturday for us. It really continues through next week and then on to the rest of the month, because May is just such a hot time for job changes.
No, that's awesome, man. And nobody covers the hirings and firings like you do. And also, I heard right around the corner, the little birdie told me the XFL Director of Player Personnel announcements are coming down the pipeline. So, we can chop it up offline for that. Before we do let you go, I know somebody in the virtual green room here wanted to pop on and say hello. Let's pop them up there. Boom! There's the ninja. What's happening?
Get me off here. I do not want to share a screen with that guy.
Yeah, Rick. Good morning, everybody. I did not know I was going to come on this program if certain individuals were already included in the. So,
what's up, Familia?
Good morning, everybody. I love seeing all those familiar faces, especially turning on the opening the computer screen and seeing you guys. It definitely makes my day. I hope your day is as good as mine thus far.
Yeah, this is, I think we need to talk about like the draft nitwits or something like that. We should have our own little website with all four crazies on there.
I told Rick before the show he can't boot me off until I get to see Bo. So true story. There you go. Really excited to talk some ball.
Yeah, some good times happening off the air amongst these individuals, and it's kind of a virtual extravaganza bonanza. But that's what we do here on the State of Football. We do some on the air networking and friendly saying hello. So I just wanted to get that in, Neil, before we let you go. Any parting shots for these bozos or our listening audience at home?
No, man. I mean, I'll have my popcorn just like y'all will. It's going to be a lot of fun charting everything, just going pick by pick. Exciting weekend. And, I'm just so glad it's here.
Absolutely. Well, hey, happy drafting. I'm sure we'll be chatting, and we'll keep it locked over there at InsideTheLeague.com.
Sounds great, gentlemen. Have a great weekend.
Later,
Neil.
There you go. You see Craig T. Smith, 3 of his favorite guys right there, not including me. Big Law, what up, baby? By the way, Big Law will be holding it down. We got the NFL draft pre-draft coverage every night. Tonight we'll kick it off at 7 p.m. Eastern. Do an hour countdown. Big Law will be holding it down with Lorenz and Zach Petra and special guests to be determined. Maybe the draft ninja Bo Marchionte will be on. And then Friday we'll come back. We'll do it again with I believe a 6 p.m. pre-draft show, because the draft is starting at 7 p.m. Friday, Lorenz, right? And then Saturday, I'm asking the guy in Germany. Saturday, I think it gets kicked off at noon Eastern, so we'll be live once again from 11 a.m. to noon Eastern. But there's a lot to keep up with, Bo. This is like one of the most unpredictable drafts that I can remember in the past 20 years. What do you make of this jambalaya?
Yeah, it is. I mean, everybody knows that what we're set for tonight when things get started in Las Vegas is something I don't think we're accustomed to seeing in terms of teams and the unpredictability. I like to say that, these quarterbacks usually have the first-class tickets, but they're flying coaching economy like everybody else this year. And when you think about the uncertainty just amongst the top 5, I'm still not convinced Walker is going to be the number 1. I've still not disregarded Aiden Hutchinson. Even with Jacksonville re-signing Cam Robinson to the long-term deal, I wouldn't be surprised if Saquonu or Neal comes off the board. So I think those 4 guys are all in play as we speak for this number 1 pick. And it should be an exciting time. It's a life-changing moment for so many. And, all that hard work comes to fruition where they kind of partake. They get to hug the commissioner, walk across that stage. They get to hear their name called. And the best part is we get to talk about it.
Yeah, I was telling Lorenz earlier, I'm hoping somebody just kind of gives Godell a little body bump into the water over there. But no, it's going to be a fun time. And I know Lorenz was chomping at the bit to talk to you here because Lorenz has got to go soon. So I'll kick it over to him to chop it up and break it down. Lorenz, what do you got?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to take it one step further for these scouts and decision makers as well. I mean, this is a year's work that go into these 3, maybe 4 days if you do a couple of undrafted free agent deals and whatnot. I mean, this is a bunch of work that just accumulates, and then it's gone like that, and you're on to the next one. A lot of them already are getting started on the next one. So it's a really exciting time. Bo, where do you think the first quarterback comes off the board? Like, just, I mean, if you have a team, that's great. If you have just a pick, just a range, because I have no idea. I mean, there's a lot of teams that could make the case or that I could make the case for, but at the end of the day, I could see these. Could we have a top 10 without a quarterback drafted?
Well, my current mock draft, I have 5 quarterbacks going inside the top 10.
Really?
No,
I was going to say,
no, you know what? I think Carolina could be the spot just for the connections between Matt Rule and Kenny Pickett. Tepper, their owner, he was a graduate of Pitt University as well. So I think there's just a lot of underlying factors that can make that combination happen in terms of Pitt going to Carolina at number 6. If we bypass that law, I think you're correct in thinking that we will not see a quarterback come off the board in the top 10. You got to think about E.J. Manuel back in 2013 as the last quarterback. It was a single-digit quarterback coming out of that first round. With that said, I think if Pickett doesn't go at the 6th spot, I think you have a lot of time to think between picks 10 to 20, 20 to 32, where another quarterback's going to come off the board. I know the Steelers are a team. We know that New Orleans has 2 first-round picks. The Eagles, we don't know if they're settled on Jalen Hurts. So there's a lot of opportunities. The Texans at 13, Washington at 11, a couple other teams that you don't know. But I just think the way that these quarterbacks grade out, I would say we have at least 2 in the first round. And if Pickett doesn't go at 6, I would say both the quarterbacks, and I would say Willis and Pickett would be those 2 coming off the board in round 1. But I don't think they would be till late. I don't see a lot. I've tossed and turned over the idea. Is this going to be, our team's going to go against the board? Are they going to go against what they know? Are they going to reach? And they all practice and they all preach, hey, you know what? We're not going to reach for a guy. We're going to stick to the work that we've done. I think this is a lot of smoke and smoke screens. It's a poker game. They're in Las Vegas. I don't see these quarterbacks going very high. I'm reluctant to even think Willis might even go in the first round. I've been saying that. I might be a fool to think it. I was kicked off a draft show years ago when I said Johnny Manziel would go out of the top 20. He ended up going 22 to the Browns. But during that show, a host actually kicked me off the program. That's how frustrated he was with me. So all I'm saying is I'm not convinced this class is going to, be a bounty of first-round prospects in the first round.
No, I'm right there with you, and you're right about the Steelers. That's to me that's kind of the team. They could either move up, they could even stay put and get one of the guys, depending on how it falls. And that's a team. I'll just say this: being down there at the Senior Bowl, even staying for the game, that was the team that did a bunch of work on the quarterbacks with high level execs as well, still staying the entire week. So I do think the interest obviously is there, and that's been reported widely. So I'm excited to see if someone like you said, do they go against the board? Do they even trade up, or if they can stay put and get one of the guys that they like at 20, assuming they like Pickett and assuming they like maybe Malik Willis. So yeah, it's going to be a wild ride. I know everybody wants to talk quarterbacks when there's so many exciting other positions in this draft, and so much exciting depth as well.
Yeah, I was in Pittsburgh Monday. Colbert and Mike Tomlin had their pre-draft press conference. And, I asked Colbert about the idea of moving up and down because they have. 4 times in the past, Colbert's moved up or down. Or in the first round, they've moved up 3 times. They've dropped down once. And they acquired Paul Amalu, Casey Hampton, Devin Bush, and Antonio Holmes in those particular deals. I think the rumors going around that there might be 15 to 18 prospects on each team's board that ranks out as a first-round grade. Them sitting at 20, they're on the outside looking in. I think they did all this homework. I think they did such detailed assessment of these quarterbacks because they didn't want to miss out on one. I don't necessarily think it was that they wanted to take one just because of the transition of Ben Roethlisberger retiring. They bring in the second pick overall and a couple years ago in the draft with Mitchell Trubisky. I just think they wanted to do due diligence not to miss on a guy. I don't really think it meant that they were taking one. I could be completely wrong, but it's draft day. I had to make the decision on which way I was going to stand. And I think it's a smokescreen by Pittsburgh. I think they're going to move up tonight. I think Jordan Davis or Kyle Hamilton would be 2 guys that they're going to eye in the first round. That defense was a gashing hole sometimes for defenses to go through. And I think quarterback, as much as it's an important thing, I think they'll ride out Trubisky and they'll aim to get an impact player to help that defensive side that struggled pretty mightily last season.
That's interesting because, they'd probably have to get in front of division rival Baltimore if they want Jordan Davis, right?
Yeah.
And so that'll be something to keep an eye on. I will say this about Pickett, and I wouldn't be surprised if the quarterbacks fall at all. And I will say this, as you know, and Bo covers all of the Steelers games. I mean, outside of Carolina, like if Pittsburgh were to also pass on Kenny Pickett, like there's not another team more familiar. Like the Steelers and the Panthers share facilities. Yeah. So like there's not a team more familiar with Kenny Pickett than the Steelers. So like if both of those teams were to bypass on Kenny Pickett, I mean, you're right. There's no telling. He might slide all the way down into round 2. We're talking to Bo Marchionte, the NFL Draft Ninja, part of the NFL Draft Bible Familia, of course, collegetopro.com. Hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews going on out there. I've been asking everybody, Bo, what year draft is this for you?
It got to be close to 15 or 20, maybe. I don't know. It's been a while. I mean, ever since you started the Bible, I mean, I was not that far after it, I don't think.
That's right. That's right.
So you get the opportunity to start working with you and, you know, that old crew of Ross, Mandel, and Paul and Dan. I mean, that was a whole nother world ago. It's hard to believe.
Wow. Yeah, big shout out to Ross Mandel, the Reverend.
All those guys. I mean,
Daniel Bogoyon.
I used to drive Ross nuts, him editing my work. I mean, it was just.
Now you're driving Howard nuts.
I'm driving Howard nuts. Yeah, I drive everybody nuts. It's just not my forte. But yeah, I drive poor Howard nuts. But listen, it's been a great ride, Ricky. I mean, you've given so many guys an opportunity to do what they love, and even coming on today, it's seeing Neil earlier and Law here. It is you know, you always preach and say, you know, the family, and this is a family process, and everybody, you know, involved in it. It's special. It's a close knit group. We all, you know, it's nice to go to the All-Star games, not only just to cover the event, but more importantly, just to see the friends and faces that you kind of consider family. And I think that's one of the best parts about joining you today and just kind of building these relationships over the years.
We appreciate that, Ninja. And I'll tell you what, sounds like Lorenz Lineweaver is never going to miss a Senior Bowl appointment ever again after the stories he's telling me.
Hey man, it was we had probably the worst week of weather down there, but it was still a lot of fun. A good week. A lot of people, a lot of cool people.
Did we buy Lorenz's first beer down there?
I hope we did.
Did we buy him first of something else? Anything else first down there?
First official one in the U.S., I guess. As I was like 21 there, but. Over here we do it a little bit differently. I'm gonna just say that, but yeah, we can have fun as the first one overseas.
All right, well, hey, Lorenz, I know you got a boogie. Bo, can you hang out for a little bit longer? You got
I can stay all day if you want, Rick.
All right, cool. So Lorenz, thank you for joining us. Tell Mama Dukes happy birthday. I know you got to bounce over there because what time is it in Germany? You're going out to dinner, right?
Almost 5 p.m. Right? Got a birthday dinner in.
There you go. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Right, it is 5 o'clock somewhere. There you go.
All right, well, enjoy it. We'll see you tomorrow morning again. We'll be back at it again with the Prez, Zach Petro. No, we'll see you tonight.
I was gonna say we'll see everyone tonight. Everyone in the chat room, everyone hanging out right now. Hour before the draft. What's that? 7 Eastern. Go check it out. It's gonna be me, Big Law, and Zach, and we'll be running through all kinds of scenarios. Gonna have some cool guests. I'm really excited for it, and then keep it locked here as well for all 3 days really with the pre-draft coverage.
Yeah,
nice seeing you, man.
Yeah, good to see you. Good. Have fun chopping it up, both of you, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right, Lorenz, get out of here. He is at Scouting Lens, and he'll have you covered front to back to right. I joked earlier about Ed Kracz was on. He said the Eagles, they might move back. They might move forward. I said it reminds me of an old Aaliyah song. We busted out a little karaoke. So, hey, we're having fun here on the State of Football. We got 1 hour of power in the books, a second hour of power to go. And you said it jokingly, maybe not, but I might take you up on it and have you ride out with me for the second hour of power here, Bo, if you're down for it.
I'm down for it.
All right, cool. Yeah, we got Nick Fierro coming up in about 15 minutes. He covers Bill Central over at SI.com. And then we're going to finish it off with H-Bomb himself. Howard Balzer will be joining us at 11:30. So buckle up. It's a double chin strap affair with the familiar Bo Marchionte, the draft ninja, on the Superfly, just joining us here for the second hour of Power on the State of Football. Should we reset, Samantha? Because I need some more coffee. Bo might need to make a bathroom run. Let's do a little quick commercial break. We'll come back right after this.
You can't become an agent without passing the exam. We can help. We introduced our first practice test in 2012. Since then, we've added a study guide and a second exam, and we've helped hundreds pass a test that 55% fail. Our clients succeed at a rate 25% higher than others. For the cost of a plane ticket, you can buy our guide and take both our exams multiple times. Check us out.
Another Sunday showdown where fearless fantasy tycoons forego the camaraderie of team and embark on teams of their own.
On, yes! Let's go. Nobody cares about your fantasy team, Todd.
Hey! Maybe nobody used to care about your fantasy teams, but those days are over.
Told you people care about the Todd squad.
Think bigger, Todd. I'm talking about a national fantasy league with teams representing cities and states and managed by fantasy experts who are beholden to us. We're their stakeholders.
I used to be holding a beverage.
Yeah, and then you got chop block, Todd. Offsetting penalties. The point is that we don't have to go mano a mano anymore. Hermanos, sports are more fun when experienced together. And fantasy should be no different. So we'll stake a team, Dean. We'll huddle with our crew, Sue. We'll even DM our GM, Liam. Just like Jerry Jones. How do you like them apples, cowboy?
You have piqued my interest.
Good, because now we can pick the team that we want to run with, the GM that we want to back, the roster that we believe in, but don't want to manage. Because, well, I mean, we all got a lot going on, and some of us have jobs here.
Jobs? Forget it. He's on a roll.
So finally, we can watch our players and discuss our strategy and trash talk our opponents as we watch our fantasy football team together. And if we win,
It's like the fantasy version of fantasy.
no, it's the Hall of Fantasy League, where fantasy becomes a team sport. Are you guys with me? Yeah!
Introducing the Hall of Fantasy League franchises. The Philadelphia Powder Kegs, the Chicago Hog Mollies, the Boston Barflies, the Vegas Pocket Kings, the Atlanta Hot Wings, the Texas Yallers, the Seattle Haze, the Ohio Goats, the New York Bodega Cats, the LA Sidekicks. Don't miss out on your chance to take part in a new era of fantasy sports. Stake your team today.
Hour 2 of State of Football back with you here today. Rick Saratella, telling it like it is when it comes to the NFL draft and everything football, along with Bo Marchionte, the NFL Draft Bible Ninja, of course, collegetopro.com. He's on location across the nation, and we are breaking down NFL Draft Morning. We have Nick Fierro coming up from Bill Central in just a minute, and we've been talking about so far. This is Lorenz's second rodeo of draft coverage with the NFL Draft Bible. We had Ed Kracz covering his 12th consecutive NFL draft, Neil Stratton with his 21st draft, Bo Marchionte. I'm going to go back. I think you were circa Selvin Young, like 2005. You're right around 17 years of draft coverage, Bo. And let's see. Nick Fierro will be coming up. We'll see what draft this is for him. But you know what? I meant to ask you before we pop on Nick. I haven't seen it floating around yet. You used to always do the lunch bucket squad. Did we do one?
I'm gonna try to get one done today.
So I just gave you an assignment.
No, I did. I've been trying to finalize different things, and I'm actually working on a piece right now to send over to SI to you guys about the undrafted guys, and it's just about undrafted guys. I spoke with Rontez Miles, former New York Jet, undrafted out of California, PA, not California, Berkeley. And, kind of just share some insight because as well as anybody, Rick, Saturday is going to be a very, very sad day for a lot of these guys. They're not going to hear their name called. And a lot of times that's the day that they never, the football journey ends. They don't get in the camp. And as well as anybody, your phone's going to ring. Hey, I didn't get drafted, anything I can do. It's just a sad day. But nonetheless, guys are going to be undrafted. They're going to sign with teams. And they emerge and they carve out niches. Even in that piece, it's hard to think that Rontez Miles out of California, PA, spent 6 years with the New York Jets. That's more NFL experience than both Johnny Manziel and Ryan Leaf combined. So it's not where you start. It's definitely where you finish.
No doubt. Rontez Miles, a good friend of the NFL Draft Bible. In fact, he'd still probably be playing if not for that injury because he was a special teams dynamo, right? Oh. And that's probably a lot of these undrafted free agent guys that you're featuring in that article is where their bread and butter is going to be if they're going to make a back end of the roster. And I know you've got a lot of really in-depth analytical articles floating around over on the NFLDraftBible.com. Tell the listening audience at home what they can find.
Well, a lot of it is. I call it the hillbilly analytics. There's no high-tech information, no next-gen stats. It's just kind of going off the history that we kind of see that bears witness to what we all know. And you can only go back and kind of learn from what you've seen. And, I've kind of tried to touch base with all the positions leading up to this 2022 class, a couple pieces on the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, offensive line, linebackers, DNs. I don't think I missed a specific position. We have the DBs in there with Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley, Trent McDuffie out of Washington. So it's just a little bit of a variation of the positions and what's out there to kind of delve into. I hope you read it. I think it might enlighten you to some things that you might not know and kind of help in your draft weekend. I think there's a few things sprinkled through there that if you read it, you take it in, then when the draft shakes out, you can be like, hey, that kind of makes some sense now that I got done finishing up with the piece.
No, there's so much nuggets of information in there. It's a DraftNix golden nugget, and if you get to it before the draft, you can get to it after the draft. It's still relevant, and Bo is going to be dropping all kinds of content throughout the week. I'm sure of it, so keep it locked. Again, we got the pre-draft coverage. Samantha, you're going to have to get a hold of Bo and see if he can pop on any of our pre-draft coverage throughout the week. I'm going to be popping, hopping, and bobbing in and out where I can, when I can. I'll be over on the SI.com side with Albert Breer, bringing some analysis there. So, I mean, it's starting now. It's happening now. We're 9 hours away, working overtime today, like any other day, except it's actually draft day. And, we were all floating around like a social butterfly out there in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine. Did you cross paths with our next guest at all?
Who's our next guest?
Let's find out. Nick Fierro joins us from Bill Central here on the State of Football, part of the Fan Nation Network on Sports Illustrated. Good morning, Nick. How are you today?
Hi, guys. Doing well. Getting ready for tonight.
Absolutely. And I can guarantee Nick saw this crazy maniac floating around the streets at some point during his week in Indianapolis. But Nick, I was chopping it up with Ed, and it was really the first time a lot of us got a chance to meet each other for the first time. So it was like I said, it was a short time, but it was a fun time, and we appreciate you joining us here this morning.
No, sure. Happy to be on, and really just my second year doing Bills coverage, but I had done the Eagles for 17 years before that.
All right, so we got 19 years of cover. We got a lot of years of draft coverage here on the state of football. So let's get into that great football mind. I'll kick it off because I haven't had a chance to see your final mock, Nick. I know when I was doing it, and I was on the show Monday with our residential Bills Mafia bandwagon driver, Ralph Ventry. He is a diehard Bills fan in and out. And we talked about the possibility, at least, I do believe Breece Hall is going to land in the first round somewhere. And I said it's a luxury more than a necessity, but the Bills are looking to get over the hump in this, what has become really a highly competitive AFC. And man, wouldn't Breece Hall kind of be that kind of element that they don't currently have in that offense?
Probably. As much as I'm a big Devin Singletary guy, I like Devin Singletary. He proved to me to be better than a lot of people thought, and they would be just fine going forward with him. But here's the thing, with Devin Singletary, with the guy that they just signed, with everyone really on that team except for Zach Moss, they're not committed to all the guys are going to be playing out the last year of their contracts this year. And so you have to start thinking about that part of it too. Duke Johnson, they just signed a 1-year deal. There's a lot of 1-year deals, which kind of makes this draft really interesting, because even though the Bills are really loaded at pretty much every position except cornerback, but they could go in any direction in the draft because of that, because they're really going to need the players after this year, and they have to start thinking long term. But yeah, it is a luxury pick. It was bad. I thought it was bad when the Giants drafted Saquon Barkley. It probably wasn't even a good idea for the Cowboys to draft Zeke Elliott. But when you're built to win right away, and you're going to contend for a Super Bowl now, and you have a chance to get a guy who would easily be, but probably be the best running back on your roster right away, yeah, you can afford to do it, especially since they might not even have to move up to do it. And as far as that goes, I think most people, including Brandon Beane, the Bills GM, have been saying that the value of this draft is in the middle rounds, at least the second, third, fourth rounds. They don't have a lot of first-round grades on players, which would lead you to believe that they might want to trade down. But with the Bills, they already have 8 picks. If they trade down, they're going to wind up with more. How many openings are they going to have on their team? You can't protect guys. You can only protect them so much on injured reserve. And so if they get a bunch of guys that they like, they might not even be able to keep them anyway. So they're in a position where they can go up and get somebody, and they don't have to worry so much about quantity and just go for quality if they want.
Yeah, it takes 2 to tango, and when you're picking that late in the draft, it might be hard to find a trade partner, and you alluded to cornerback being a possibility. But, Bo, I'll go over for your opinion. Don't you – and I'm a big Scooter fan myself. I love Scooter to death, but I just feel like Breece Hall would be that upgrade. And not only that, I mean, there's been some durability issues in that Bills backfield as well. So what's your take on Breece Hall, Bo?
Yeah, I mean, I think Singletary, down the stretch last year, he really came on strong. I think with Buffalo, I don't know if it's the lack of confidence in Singletary, but I just think anything that they can do to diminish the workload of Josh Allen carrying the football. He's the centerpiece of the franchise, and I think they overuse him at times. I think they're reluctant to think that, hey, this guy could get hurt. And I know he's a big-bodied guy, but nonetheless, that's a lot of pounding when this guy is carrying the ball that much in today's league. I think the addition, if you did acquire Breece Hall, he becomes that guy, and he becomes the best back on the roster, and it's somebody they can kind of build around. And with Singletary, that I know that his contract does cease to exist next year. I don't think they would be somebody, even if they don't take Breece Hall, that they would bring back. But with that said, they have options. That's the best part about the Bills sitting at 25. I think of like Boise Mafe from Minnesota. to pair him with the Von Miller and have those guys coming off the edges and just kind of creating havoc, for the Bills. So they're in a good place. It's nothing better than sitting at the end of the draft knowing that taking Hall would be a luxury pick, vice versa, than having a deep need that you have to kind of reach for. They can kind of let the draft fall to them, see what they want best. Kyler Gordon, Washington, we know Andrew Booth, Clemson DBs, if they want to go that route. Those names, as much as Hall and Mafe, should all be guys that they should be able to take, that should be sitting there with that 25th pick tonight.
Yeah, and we'll get the official Nick Fierro mock draft selection in just a second here for Bills Central, part of the Fan Nation Network on Sports Illustrated. But let's go in a different direction here quickly, Nick, because there's a lot of disgruntled wide receivers around the league currently. I haven't been able to keep up entirely with it all. Is Cole Beasley still a member of this organization? What is his fate? What does his future hold?
The Bills released him a little while ago. He apparently had asked to be traded, and it didn't look like they were going to pay him. He had been due for an extension. So, I think it worked out probably best for the Bills and for him. He'll get a job somewhere, I believe. I mean, even though he's getting up there in years, he's still pretty productive, and I got to believe that somebody will sign him.
So is Emmanuel? Sorry to cut you off. Is Emmanuel Sanders still in the fold there in the slot, or does that leave a hole for the team?
No. Well, Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah, he's going to be. No. Emmanuel Sanders was a free. He's a free agent now too. His contract expired. He's probably going to retire. Okay. I think they really like Gabriel Davis. Obviously, last year was his second year. He really came on, especially in the playoffs. You saw what he did. That's going to be, I think, a really good punch with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. And so, they could always bring Sanders back maybe if something happens, injuries happen. But right now, I don't think that's in their thinking, and I don't think that's in Sanders' thinking. And I don't think they're going to be bringing Cole Beasley back. But just getting back to Beasley for a second, I don't think the vaccination issue is going to be a thing this year. I mean, so the teams, maybe the Cowboys won't bring him back because they have a thing against unvaccinated players. But I think a lot of teams might consider bringing him in. And I think Emmanuel Sanders will get offers too, but he's getting up there in years, and I think he's thinking about once that retirement starts creeping into your head.
You're already retired.
Yeah, when you're a player, and especially as you're going to training camp, which is when you really have to start getting your body going. That's like, do I really want to go through this? Unless you're like a Brett Favre or something, where you don't have to go to camp, you can just unretire, every August and come in. Which is a game you can play every year. But other than that, nah.
Strahan did that a little bit too there at the end, but I think Cole Beasley, his bigger issue than the vaccine is probably just putting out these bad rap albums that he releases. That's the issue for me. Like, I don't need that in my locker room. But hey, I will say this one follow-up, and you don't have to react, but just a parting thought here. Like, Gabriel Davis was like, and I love Gabriel Davis, believe me. He was like wide receiver number 3, number 4 last year. Now suddenly he's the starter. Beasley's got, I don't know if they have much depth, so maybe it's not a first-round need. Maybe it's a later in the draft type need, but we're talking to Nick Fierro along with Rick Saratella, Bill Marchionte here on the State of Football, part of the Fan Nation Network on Sports Illustrated. And where can everybody find your work, Nick? What do you got going on this week before we toss it back over to Bo and see what direction he wants to go in with the Bills chatter?
Okay, well, I'm at si.com/NFL/Bills. And that's where everything goes. I'm about to be posting our Fan Nation mock draft, as most of our publishers have done already. I'll be putting that up probably within the next half hour, and then we'll be covering tonight just to see what they do. I will say this too, about the wide receivers. They did sign Jamison Crowder, again, 1-year deal, and if he's healthy, what kind of a receiver he is. They brought back Isaiah McKenzie, who the one game where he filled in last year for Cole Beasley, he ended up with 12 catches for 120 some yards. It was against the Patriots in the regular season game. He had a better game than Beasley did all year. They really kind of think that he could be a guy too that they can plug. So they're pretty good this year. But again, looking down the road, yeah, and of course Gabriel Davis will be eligible for that monster contract extension. So after this year, so if they can't get that done, they're going to want to get a guy like maybe Jahan Dotson or somebody like that. Maybe they could go in that direction in the first round easily as well. But yeah, it's really interesting with the Bills. They could go in a lot of different directions, and I think that they could very well trade up. The more I think about it now, the more I think they're going to trade up, and they're not going to sit there at 25, because I don't think that Brandon Beane's got 25 first round grades on guys, and so. Last year they didn't have that. They didn't have 30, but they were lucky that we were having the same conversation, by the way, about Travis Etienne last year, the running back, but he was taken off the board. But they felt like they got lucky that Gregory Rousseau, who they did have a first round grade on, fell to them at 30.
Some interesting takes from Nick Fierro here on the State of Football with Rick Saratella, Bo Marchionte. You mentioned McKenzie, who's a talented player who I think fell in the draft due to character concerns. Jamison Crowder will be adequate in the slot, but man, Bo, we were talking about your NFL draft Bible birth. I mean, I remember it like yesterday. Young Money crew, Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown, and they were just young rookies coming out in Pittsburgh, and here we are, like they're both out of the league. So, what do you think about that?
It shows we're getting older, Rick. It just shows that time stops for nobody, and we all got those grays coming in. Nick, I got to ask, you mentioned that Brandon Beane and company might move up. Who do you think if they did elect, and we don't know, but just a hunch, where do you think they would go if they did elect to move up tonight? And how high?
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to go up, but just my instinct, I don't know that they're going to go up very high. I think they're going to wait to see what unfolds in front of them. And then, going up, I think if there's one of these cornerbacks that they really like, look, there's a lot of really good cornerbacks that people like, and if, let's say one of these guys falls. Derek Stingley was injured forever. Maybe he falls, and maybe he's still around, and he's not picked up, and they go up and get him. Maybe one of these wide receivers they could go and get. A guy like Jameson Williams, who probably won't be on the board much past 15, but, I don't know. You mentioned Andrew Booth. One of these cornerbacks, the guy that I like, we haven't gotten to my pick. Should I tell you now?
Well, yeah, what I was going to say, I do want to get your pick. So what I was going to say, I'm looking at the Bills' picks. They have 25, 57, and 89. So if they did move up, they'd probably have to give up first year next year too. But yes, please do hit us and unveil the Nick Fierro mock draft that'll be featured on the Fan Nation circulation.
Oh yeah, this will be the first round mock draft that the Fan Nation put together. So I did my mock draft a while back, my 7-round mock draft. But Kaiir Elam from Florida, who might not have a first round grade, maybe they feel like they could trade down and get him. I don't know. But he looks like a guy that would go right around that 25, or might still be on the board, or maybe not. And I really like his skill set because he's tall, and he plays taller because he's I believe 6'1.5", a wingspan of 6'4.5", has really good speed in the 40. His flaws are that he overruns tackles, sometimes, and he's kind of got that lean frame. Those things can be coached up, right? A year in the sports science program, and playing with some of the best cornerbacks and D-backs in the league, they could be overcome, I think, through coaching and through program. But the speed and the length, that can't be coached, obviously. And I like the raw materials there.
It would seem to make a lot of sense. Yeah. And you pair him with Travarius White back there, and you got a formidable duo. By the way, what's the status? Because I thought the Bills were very vulnerable there in the secondary once White went down. Is he going to be 100% ready to go? Is he coming back for OTAs or training camp? What's the latest there, Nick?
Yeah, they keep saying that he's ahead of schedule and everything, and they like his progress. But as you know, I mean, ACLs, when you tear your ACL, lots of times it takes a calendar year or more for you to feel better, to feel like yourself again. And he tore that ACL on Thanksgiving. So there you go. I don't think that they're going to put him into anything in the OTAs. They haven't said one way or another, but I wouldn't expect him to see him at least until training camp, if not later in the regular season. And so, yeah, they lost Levi Wallace, their other starter, to free agency, and they're a little thin there. They like Dane Jackson, and they plugged him in there as their other starter against opposite Levi. They finished the season that way, but they could be that they could be starting there. I'm fairly certain they're going to be starting the season with two new corners, two other corners, the guys that weren't on the team then. That we're going to be looking at now, because I don't think that Tre'Davious White is going to be ready to start the season.
Yeah, and one last thought there too. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks here in the AFC and trying to stop some of these track meet squads. They're going to need to be able to shut down the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, and so I think cornerback could definitely be in play. I like a running back. We'll get Bo's selection here and his final question for Nick before we let him boogie. Go ahead, Bo.
Nick, you mentioned the background and the lineage that you spent with Philadelphia. I hate to go off topic, but do you think there's any inkling that the Eagles pull a trigger on a quarterback tonight? I know they still got Jalen Hurts on board. It's kind of alluded to its question, but I mean, you have such a background and history with the team that I didn't know of. Thoughts there?
Well, yeah, I actually kind of thought they were going to draft Hurts when they did. I had a mock draft going into that year, and I actually had them drafting him in the third round. I thought he'd be around there, but then when they drafted him in the second, Howie Roseman said, he wouldn't have been there in the third. That's why we took him in the second. Do I see them drafting a quarterback this year? No. Maybe a developmental guy in the later rounds that they think that they can. But no, nobody that they feel is going to come in and challenge Jalen Hurts right away. I don't think so. That would really surprise me.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of, that team way better than I would. I just was curious to your thoughts.
All right, fellas. Well, hey, we're working through a little internet issues here, Samantha. I think it's cleared up. But Nick, any parting shots for our listening audience at home? If you want to hit them with the Twitter one more time, the website, anything else you want to get off your chest, man, the platform is yours.
No, just that I really think that the Bills, are going to move around a little bit in this draft. I would expect them to move in the first round because I think quality is going to be more important than quantity for them. They don't have that many openings on this roster, the way they've set it up. They do need cornerbacks, but look, there's still some veteran guys out there that if they don't get what they want in the draft, that there's still guys that they can go out and get. And who knows, maybe Tre'Davious White is ready to start the season, in which case they only need one and not two corners. So I think they're in pretty good shape. And as far as on Twitter, yeah, follow me at Nick Fierro. My name, NickFierro. And NICK. I was thinking about dropping the K like you, I'm not going to do that.
Follow right now, Nick.
Yeah, man, we'll be following for sure. And I was going through a really frantic day when I came across that email. Like I said, I needed the good laugh. So Nick Fierro, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we'll be chopping it up throughout the week, Nick. Thank you.
Follow there, Nick.
And Nick's getting the new followers here on the State of Football, part of the Fan Nation Network on Sports Illustrated, some great publishers with Ed Kracz and Nick Fierro. And up next, we'll just get right into it. Is Howard Balzer ready to go, Samantha? Can we pop him on here? Checking in from the desert. There he is. Happy draft day, Howard. Good morning.
Happy draft day. I couldn't help but kind of laugh when Bo said, yeah, it shows we're getting old and how time marches on. I mean, heck, it was only 42 years ago that I appeared on the first ESPN draft telecast. So it's pretty amazing what this has become and where we are. But yeah, talk about time flying. That's surely the case.
It's come a long ways from being held in Las Vegas and shipping out the draft picks via gondola. I mean, wait, Howard. What was it? The Hilton or the Ramada? What was the lobby like? What do you got? Like a half a dozen guys hanging out, and now there's probably 2,000 credentialized media in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know if there was much media there at all back in the day. There wasn't any real reason to be there because they didn't bring players in. They of course, the production, the TV production, they didn't have reporters at different places. I mean, it was about as bare bones as you can imagine anything being. But I always go back to the famous anecdote, and everyone always wonders, well, how did it come to be that ESPN even started televising the draft? And we have to remember in 1980, in April, ESPN had only been on the air since September, the previous September. And so they were just looking for anything to put on the air and fill their hours. And so Chet Simmons was their first president, who had come over from NBC. And so he famously contacted Pete Rozelle and said, Commissioner, we're interested in televising the draft. And Pete Rozelle responded, well, why in the world would you want to do that? And here we are 42 years later. So quite different. Technology, obviously, the eyeballs on it, moving around to different cities and all those things. And I mean, hey, people always ask me, could you have envisioned the draft now being what it is now? Could you have envisioned it then? And of course you say, oh, absolutely not. But who could have envisioned the internet back then? I mean, this was all, pipe dreams. And so certainly there's so many things that have fueled the interest over the years. But man, the one thing I will always miss, though, guys, is that back in the day, everybody only did one mock draft. That was it. You did a mock draft maybe within the last week, a day or two before. I was at the Sporting News at the time. We had to do it a week in advance because of the publication of the newspaper. The draft occurred on Tuesday back then, but that was it. People who did mock drafts did one. Now it's mock draft 7.0 and things like that. And people are doing mock drafts at the end of the regular season before you even know what the order is going to be. It's just totally insane. But I'll say this, of course, back then the draft was like 12 rounds or whatever. No one did 12-round mock drafts like they do, like you do 7-round mock drafts now, which is an absolute exercise in futility. But people love to see it and love to see the projections.
Well, on a side note there, make sure you tune in to NFLDraftBible.com tomorrow morning. I'll have my round 2 mock draft after the day 1 recap. So there you go. Howard Balzer here, NFL insider, of course, publisher for all Cardinals. We'll get into that in just a minute or so. But man, we shared so many good times and memories and stories and out in Indianapolis at the Combine. And man, I know our listening audience would love to hear some of those. And maybe I think we're going to have you back each day this week and save the Joel Bucksbaum story because I want to share that one too. But I'm going to kick it over to my compadre, Bo Marchionte over here. Bo, what do you got here for Howard?
Howard, it's kind of ironic that I see you right now because earlier I was working on some stuff to post, and I always like to put some background television on. So I decided to go for the 30 for 30 Elway to Marino just to start my draft morning off the correct way. And I did see some young strapping buck with long brown flowing hair. And lo and behold, he's witnessed on our screen with us. And, Rick mentioned just the how tiny this was. And you mentioned, Pete Rozelle wondering why they would even televise it. What point did you realize that this, if you did, where this thing could grow into this enormous beast that's currently going on in Las Vegas now, but it's basically second, I think, to the Super Bowl in terms of what the NFL brings to us?
Well, you could see it build over those first few years. No one knew what the reaction was going to be from people after the first one, because I'm telling you, I mean, it was pure talking heads television because there weren't the highlights, there weren't all the great technological things and all that all networks have. And so everyone wondered, but the reaction was pretty good that, we just analyzed and talked about the players and did this and that with just 2 sites. I mean, I was in Bristol with Bob Lee, the legendary anchor. And then there was a set in New York that was anchored by George Grand. And that was it. That was it for that first draft. But you could see it start to grow. And there was one seminal moment, which I'll never forget. A lot of people ask me, that first draft, with you and Paul Zimmerman, I always remember it. And I said, well, you don't have a very good memory because Paul Zimmerman of Sports Illustrated wasn't on the first draft. He was not there the first year, but he came in the second year. And I was still in Bristol. He was in New York. But this gives a little insight into how things change for the NFL teams also with the draft being televised. Because I mentioned what Rozelle said, a lot of the owners were against this. They felt that was the draft was their little secret sauce. We don't want to show everybody how it's all made. We want this to be done in private. But Rozelle said, no, I think we're going to put this on. And so Dr. Z, Paul Zimmerman, he had been accustomed. He was doing a mock draft for Sports Illustrated, and he would talk to the GMs that he knew, and they would tell him the truth. How about that? They would actually tell Paul Zimmerman the truth of players they were interested in, what might happen, this and that. And then he would always promise, I'm not going to identify you. And I said, I'm doing a mock draft late in the process. And so you're not going to be really giving away any secrets and all those things. And so he had the general managers that would accommodate him. Well, I'm pretty sure it was 1981, the first year that he was on. It might have been 82, but I'm pretty sure it was 81. And a quarterback named Rich Campbell from Cal was in the draft. And so Paul had come on and said, no, people, well, might they take a quarterback? Might they do this? No, they have no interest in Rich Campbell. They might go in this direction and all that. Well, what did the Packers do? They selected Rich Campbell. And Paul Zimmerman, when the camera went to him afterward, famously said, well, the Packers lied to me. He actually said that on the air. The Packers lied to me. I'll never talk to the guy again. Didn't mention the name of who told him. He said, but I'll never talk to him again. But that just showed that with now this thing on TV, nobody was going to give away the truth. And that certainly that's led to all the smoke screens and all the ridiculousness we see now with agendas being pushed for different players and all that. But that was kind of an initial time which said, hey, this thing might have some legs and continue to build. But I think when the internet came in and that, and ESPN started sending people, different reporters, different places, that happened to me. I mean, in the 9 years I did the draft for ESPN, I was in Bristol and New York a few times, but then one time I was at the 49ers headquarters. One time I was actually at NFL Films. One time, my last broadcast was at Rams Park in Anaheim. So, but they started sending guys all over the country. And of course we see it now where teams even allow cameras in their war room, as long as you cover up that draft board. So yeah, you could see it somewhat early that this was catching on, and that, people would come up to me at different places and they'd say, ESPN. And it was pretty crazy. And people would say to me how they would take off work, or even if they were in school, they would all of a sudden that morning, on a Tuesday, they'd wake up, Mom, I don't feel good, and start coughing so they didn't have to go to school because they wanted to watch the draft. And many people would say that to me. And so the draft has gone from Tuesday and moved all over the place. And now it's pretty well set where it is with, two, who would have ever thought two first 3 rounds and 2 nights of the draft would be on prime time? I mean, that's insane, but that's where we are.
That's it. We are.
Here we are with Howard Balzer, along with Rick Saratella, Bo Marchionte. Great insight into really one of the pioneers of this business. And I know our listening audience at home are enjoying it. Shout out to Craig T. Smith, longtime veteran scout in the chat room. Also, Tom Goodhines, who I know was anxious for your debut here this year on the State of Football, Howard, and Big Law, Lawrence Johnson in the chat room, the Prez, Zach Petraw hanging out, Jimmy Johnson out in Indianapolis, and John Raspberry. I promise we'll get to your questions. Stay tuned to the end of the show for that. You mentioned the mock drafts and how we actually used to get legitimate mock drafts. And, I think it's officially over. Those days are officially over. The last guy to really have some kind of insider knowledge, I thought, was Bob McKinn, who I'm not sure if he still does mock drafts. He's kind of retired, but he still pops up now and
Right.
then. But I can't think of anybody that actually has, like, I look at some of these mocks, everybody's just speculating. Right?
Of course. And Rick Gosselin, it always was a very good one. And I see something there in the Tom Goodhines, who used to be with Arena Football. And by the way, just as an aside, I wrote in the Sporting News back in '86, I think it was, the first published story anywhere about the inception of indoor football and arena football. But he has my best projected pick of all time. And I thought of this the other night when someone posted a little clip from the 1983 draft on Twitter. And so I clicked on it to see what Paul Zimmerman and I were saying. Of course, we were talking about all the speculation about what the Colts would do with the number 1 pick, because John Elway had told them, I'm not going to play for you, for you guys if you draft me. And there was rumors everywhere. Well, I had mentioned earlier how the mock draft that we did in the Sporting News was done a week before the draft. Actually, it was put together about 10 days before the draft, because the Sporting News went to the printer on Mondays every week. And of course, the draft was on Tuesday. So you couldn't have the mock draft appear in the paper the day before the draft, because people wouldn't see it until after the draft was over. So we had to have it in the previous week. Well, I had heard some chatter and got some information that the Broncos were a team that was very interested in making a deal with the Colts. But hardly anybody was talking about the Broncos. They were talking about the Raiders and the Patriots and the 49ers, this team and that team. But no one was talking about the Broncos. So I actually did my mock draft, guys, and projected the Broncos and the Colts making a trade, and then the Broncos selecting John Elway. Well, of course, we know that happened, but it didn't happen until a week after the draft. And that led to, by the way, Ernie Accorsi, who was the general manager of the Colts at the time, of resigning, because the owner, Robert Irsay of the Colts, was the one who made the deal. And of course, he just walked in and resigned and said, well, if you're going to be making trades, then I'm not going to be your general manager anymore. But on that little clip that they posted, we were talking about all these different teams. And at the very end, I said, well, keep your eye on Denver. They could enter this thing at the last minute. But everyone forgot it. Everyone forgot it because it didn't happen until a week later. So that would have to be my best projected pick ever in the mock drafts that I've done. The other pretty good one was I started later in my mock drafts with the Sporting News. Rather than try to guess what teams were doing or were going to do, I would make the pick as if I was the team's general manager. And so I would say, this is what I would do if I was picking for this team. And so this was the draft where all the debate was between Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers to be the number 1 overall choice. And so I actually did not have the 49ers taking Alex Smith, but I did have him going as the first quarterback. Don't ask me because I don't remember what team I had him going to. But then after that, I just projected, in my mind, the team should take other players. And then it got to Green Bay as I'm doing this draft, and I projected Aaron Rodgers to the Packers with that pick, whatever, what was it, 23, 24 overall, whatever it was. I said this would be a spot for Aaron Rodgers to go because Brett Favre obviously was getting up in years, and they can have a seamless transition to their next quarterback. So that was a pretty good projection also, although I wasn't predicting it would happen because of all the picks that preceded him. I just thought that other teams wouldn't take a quarterback or shouldn't take a quarterback because they needed other positions.
Wow. The Elway one is tough to beat, and you might not have been doing 12-round mocks, but you were still projecting mock trades back in the day. We're talking to Howard Balzer here on the State of Football with Rick Saratella, along with Bo Marchionte, breaking it down, chopping it up. It's draft morning, everybody. Howard will be with us each day this week, and we'll get into some NFL reaction, some Cardinals talk. But you mentioned our good friend Tom Goodhines, and yes, we do miss the Sporting News, Craig T. Smith. Absolutely. I wanted to ask your thoughts on the alternate football and specifically the spring leagues. The USFL ratings already dropping in week 2, the XFL right around the corner. Have you tuned in? Have you checked it out? And what are your thoughts and impressions there?
Yeah, I have checked it out. I've always loved spring football. I love the I call it the real USFL when it was around back in the 80s, because they went after top line players, and it was obviously a much different league. What the Alliance did, 3 years ago, the XFL 2 years ago, and what the USFL is doing is just filling a niche for football, but doing it with players that obviously are not on NFL teams. And so there's no star power in the league. So I think the falling ratings were to be expected. It happened with the other two leagues. Certainly the USFL, this USFL seems a little better funded with Fox owning it. And they're saving one of the problems with it, they're saving a lot of money by playing all the games in Birmingham. But to me, it's a bad look. If the Birmingham team is not playing, there's nobody in the stands. I mean, they are absolutely empty. And I think that's a bad look. When people tune in, I think part of the ambiance, part of the atmosphere is having people there and cheering and the camera spanning it, and you see people getting into it. Well, what are viewers thinking when they tune in? They say, well, nobody in Birmingham cares. Well, I think it's understandable. I mean, they're going to the Birmingham game, but why would you spend money, no matter how inexpensive the tickets are? Why would you spend money to see these other teams? So it'll be interesting to see if they have staying power. You mentioned the XFL planning to come back next year. I hope that lasts. I think that one thing that needs to happen, and it was one reason why the Alliance went away when it did, is that the guy who came in as the financer, and I think there should be a relationship with the NFL that allows, right after the season ends in the NFL, all the teams, pretty much almost re-sign their entire practice squad for future contracts for the next year. And what do those players then do after the season's over? They sit around, do nothing until the off-season programs begin in April, and then OTAs at the end of May. Well, why not have it available that some of these, it's up to the player if they want to, but have an arrangement where these guys can go to whatever league there is playing. It gives them game experience, especially younger quarterbacks. Hey, if you have a third quarterback even on your roster, why not let them go play somewhere instead of just sitting around doing nothing? And so they're not getting experience. So I think that would help these leagues, because then the teams could say, hey, we have these players from these teams on our roster. They're not viewed as just all street guys that are just hoping for an opportunity. They still have a lot of those guys, but you still have at least a core of guys who are actually on NFL rosters. And just as an aside, the Kurt Warner story would not have happened. It never would have happened if the World League hadn't been around then. Because
I was just going to say, the World League used to have allocated players.
Allocated players.
And exactly. To your point, like the casual fan could connect and say, oh, yeah, I remember him from the World League, and have that connection to the NFL.
Right. And the only reason the Rams signed him was because the GM at the time, Charlie Army, was doing a favor for a guy named Al Lukenbill, who, by the way, recruited Marshall Faulk to San Diego State. But Al Lukenbill was the coach of the Amsterdam team in NFL Europe. I said World League. I think it was NFL Europe then. And he called Charlie Army and he said, we'd like to have Kurt Warner on our team. Could you sign him and then allocate him to our team so then we can tell the people in Europe that Kurt Warner's on an NFL roster? And so they signed Kurt Warner. We obviously know what happened after he came back from NFL Europe and what happened, but he would not have been signed if it hadn't been for NFL Europe. So who knows what other quarterback might be the next Kurt Warner, or at least be, a decent starter in the NFL if he would just get a little more if these guys would still get a bit more opportunity to play. And, I'll tell you a funny one, Taylor Heineke, who's with Washington, and they keep trying to find someone to replace him, obviously, but he's shown to be not a bad player when he's played for Washington the last couple of seasons. 2 years ago in the XFL, he was a backup with the St. Louis Battlehawks. He was a backup to Jordan Teamu, and he was just looking for a job anywhere, and he couldn't get an NFL team to sign him. Now, I'm not going to say the XFL led to him getting a job because he ended up not playing. But
how about Tommy Maddox? Tommy Maddox.
Yeah. Well, Jake Delhomme also was an NFL Europe player back in the day and ended up playing some pretty good football for the Saints and Carolina. So I think that would be a key for one of these spring leagues to get that relationship, figure out how it would work with the NFLPA and all that, to give some of these players, they'd have to agree to do it, an opportunity, because depends on when you start your season. Because remember, the XFL and the Alliance both started the week after the Super Bowl. So they were done by the time the off-season programs and the OTAs began for the NFL teams. This USFL, that'd be a little, because if you did that, I don't know how much it would help, because with the timing now, the off-season programs will be over when the USFL regular season is over. So that would not benefit them. But I think that would help. You're never going to get great TV ratings, but the bottom line is, even with the falling ratings, guys, they still do better than the NHL on the national games. They still do just as good as a lot of the NBA playoff games. So people want to watch football, no matter what level of football it is.
Good point.
Yeah, we shall see. Howard Balzer here with Rick Saratella, Bo Marchionte, and to me, my last take here is and the XFL seems to have some kind of NFL relationship, and we'll see how much. Yeah. But if I was the USFL, I would have they spent a lot of money on the coaches.
Yeah,
I don't think people tune in for the coaches. I would have, even though they're past, they're on the back nine, I would have spent the money for the Colin Kaepernicks, for the Tim Tebows, even a Johnny Manziel. Like, get some star allure appeal. Tim Tebow will draw fans, believe me, and Colin Kaepernick would too. And even Johnny Manziel has a following, and these guys should be playing. And I'll just leave that there. But I know Bo probably has another question for you. Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, well, I agree wholeheartedly with both your guys' assessments. I think the original USFL was built on star power, and hardworking folks, even if they're $10 a ticket, you just don't want to go waste your time. I think, as you mentioned, Rick, it's great to have Jeff Fisher, but you think, oh wow, that's Tim Tebow, Kaepernick. You imagine the lightning rod that Colin Kaepernick would bring, just in terms of curiosity, the fans. People want to get a photo, an autograph. That puts fannies in the seats. That people want to see it on TV. And right now, listen, any developmental league, especially with my background, I want to see these guys have a shot. Look at PJ Walker, Carolina Panthers. If you didn't have that little accessibility a few years ago, he probably wouldn't be a backup right now with Carolina. But he got hot, and he ended up in the league. Howard, when you look at the old USFL and this, I guess the new one, do you see it lasting? We've seen such a short shelf life for all these upstarts. Do you see next year that this thing's already shut down?
I hope not. And the thing is, can two leagues survive at the same time? I'm not sure about that, especially if they end up competing against each other on TV. And so I think it's unfortunate what happened with the Alliance, and right. they hooked up with a guy who was just pled guilty to cryptocurrency stuff. He was the initial investor in the Alliance, but they wanted to get the league off, begin the league before the XFL did, and so they probably started too soon. And then he bailed, and then the new owner they brought in bailed after 8 weeks. Then the XFL was actually doing pretty well in a lot of places, and then the pandemic hit, and that was obviously unfortunate. So but it's hard to say, can it have staying power, because you're going to lose money. That's the thing. And how much deep pockets do people really have? And that's the tough question to answer. The key is that even with not great ratings, if you can get enough sponsors to sponsor on TV, and that's the bottom line. Let's remember, in the NFL, it's all about the television money. And granted, they're getting a lot of money for tickets, and you have full stadiums and all that, and that adds to the whole event. But the money is in the TV contracts, and that's what we see in the NFL. Now, obviously, one of these leagues is never going to get to the level of the NFL, but the first USFL was doing well on ABC, and they were getting sponsorships, and so that's the key. And I think that's why Fox is doing what it's doing. I'm sure they're leveraging some of their sponsors and saying, hey, come in with this, and you get a good deal here, or our other sports entities and all those things. But can they bring in enough to make it viable? And that's an unanswered question. I don't think any of us really know the answer to that, because it takes time. It takes time to build anything, and it doesn't happen in 1 year.
Yeah, and I think the TV networks are the investors here, so they're probably taking all that advertising revenue to recoup their initial investment. And like, hey, is there anything remaining? Like, they're not making much ticket sales. They're not. Is the merchandise flying off the shelves? I don't know if they're all playing in this one stadium where only Birmingham fans show up. So I don't know where their revenues are coming from. And so we'll see how long they could survive dropping ratings or if they have sustainability. All right. We do have to get out of here soon, Howard. But before we do, tell everybody at home, all Cardinals on the Fan Nation Network, part of Sports Illustrated platform here. What do you got? What are the users going to find when they log on today? What do you guys got cooking throughout the week?
Yep, allcardinals.com, and just looking at have stories up, looking on what the Cardinals might do with that first round pick, which is a crapshoot when you're sitting there at 23. But of course, we'll be all over the draft with myself and Alex Weiner and Donnie Drew, and do a great job getting the product, the content and the videos up, and just seeing what the Cardinals are going to do. And a lot of people are wondering, because Steve Keim's draft record has been, let's just call it spotty, if you will. And with really not participating very deeply in free agency this offseason, they need, especially the first 3 picks, to really make them count. They don't have a 4th or a 5th rounder. Maybe they'll pick one up if they trade down, but they really have to have these first 3 picks work out and be able to come in and hopefully contribute immediately in areas that they need, whether it's wide receiver, corner, edge rusher. They could go in a variety of directions. And so all that content you can find on allcardinals.com.
No, I see it. I'm looking at the website here. Samantha had it up online. I saw Trent McDuffie projected. Who is the official Howard Balzer selection for the Cardinals?
Well, that was my selection in the Fan Nation Publishers draft, which was based basically on obviously who had been picked in the first 22. And the top 6 wide receivers were off the board. The top edge rushers were off the board. And so I was a little surprised, actually, that McDuffie was still there at that point. So I think that would certainly make a lot of sense. I think the Cardinals would like one of the top receivers to fall to them. Don't know which one, obviously. The one thing about the draft is that no one really knows the way teams evaluate these players. No one knows that except the teams themselves. And so you can get a feeling for what teams like, but you still never really know. So, but I do think the Cardinals would love to get one of those top receivers, whichever ones they rate as the top guys. And we'll see if one of them is there, because I think, after losing Christian Kirk, who wasn't a number 2 receiver, but they definitely need a legitimate outside presence opposite DeAndre Hopkins. And they really hope to find that in this draft. And who knows? It could be in the 2nd round. But that'll definitely be an area they'll be looking at with one of those first 3 picks.
Some Boku bucks for that Mr. Christian Kirk. Before we let you boogie, you could just put a percentage on it. Is there any percentage still alive that Kyler Murray gets traded before next season, or is it 100% guarantee he'll be with?
I don't know if I'll ever say 100%, but I think it's 99.9. And of course, which is no surprise, they exercised the 5th-year option on him, which basically is the starting point for negotiations. I mean, that 1-year option is worth close to $30 million. Obviously, he wants more than that, but the Cardinals are saying, "Hey, we're willing to pay him $30 million next year." I think they're a little reticent about guaranteeing huge money for Kyler Murray, but they also realize if they don't have Kyler Murray, who's their quarterback going forward? So I think a new deal is going to happen, certainly by the start of the season, perhaps by the start of training camp, and all this drama that we've experienced, which I labeled the young and the restless. All this drama will have been forgotten, and we'll just see what the Cardinals do to improve the team around him, which, by the way, could involve an interior offensive lineman, and Zion Johnson or Kenyon Green could end up being their first-round pick, again, depending on what else has happened in front of them.
No doubt about it. He's Howard Balzer, allcardinals.com, of course, NFL insider for Sports Illustrated, and he'll be back at it again with us each and every day of the NFL draft week. Howard, thank you for waking up with us.
My pleasure, guys. Yeah, but for you, it's not waking up. For me, it was waking up. Absolutely.
Hey,
That's
Howard,
Howard Balzer, man.
Hey,
Yeah.
Howard, you spent time with us at Indy. You don't know if I was just waking up right now, too.
Well, the good point. Very good point.
All right, Howard, take it easy out there in the desert. Of course, Howard Balzer in Arizona, longtime resident of St. Louis. You'll remember all his Rams coverage and doing big things for the Cardinals now with Sports Illustrated. And Bo, man, thanks for being a trooper, man. 2 hours of power in the book here on the state of football. Shout out to all our chat room people for keeping the conversation going. And the one question, hopefully he's still on here. Hope to hear Chauncey Minnock, John Raspberry. I think you will. We had him out at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. I think he's a late day 3 possibility. Bo, before we put a ribbon on it, give me your favorite day 3 pick and give me your round 1 dark horse. I'll come back to you in a minute. In the meantime, I want to tell everybody at home, go to NFLDraftBible.com. We got you covered. Over 600 plus scouting reports for 2022 and beyond. We saw Lorenz Line-Weber on. He told you we got the wheels in motion for 2023 already. Ed Kracz joined us earlier in the show from Eagles Today. We had Neil Stratton, CEO of InsideTheLeague.com. Of course, Nick Fierro from Bill Central and Howard Balzer dropping knowledge from the All Cardinals website, all on the Fan Nation Network, part of Sports Illustrated, where I will be breaking it down over on SI.com starting today. I got the haircut yesterday. Gonna shave the face today. Ralph, I got your text, brother. Yes, I'm gonna shave for draft day. Don't worry about it. It's been a can't stop, won't stop morning. We're lucky we just got the show on the air here today. Okay, so feel free to reach out if you guys need me. RIC at NFLDraftBible.com. I'll do the best with that. And I think, we got the pregame show tonight. Zach Patrol will be joining us again with Lorenz and Howard and Bo. We got to get you with Samantha and figure out when we're going to have you on next. But give me some last hitters here. Round 1 dark horse and your favorite day 3 selection before we put a ribbon on this bad boy.
I think North Dakota receiver Christian Watson. I think he's going to be that late round, first round guy, or my favorite guy from the Senior Bowl, Boye Mafe, the Minnesota outside linebacker edge. Those are 2 guys that I think can really exceed draft expectations, even being first round guys. And then day 3, I'm going to go to like almost the Mr. Irrelevant type day 3 guy, because there's so many day 3 guys. I don't think we have enough time in the day to get into, but I'm going to go with Britton Cuffey, the Utah special teams wide receiver ace, often banged up, but with the ball in his hands, he's lethal. If you check out his 97-yard touchdown return against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl this past year, you'll see some of the special traits that he brings to the position. So very productive slot guy, diverse in the kick, punt, return game. And think of a hyped up Braxton Berrios, who went a couple years to the Patriots, got released, and now has found the niche with the New York Jets when you think of Kofi moving forward in this 2022 draft. I got no sound.
Oh, I'm on mute, the super producer Samantha said. And I love it. I can't get enough of it. What I was saying is Watson and his speed would be a great fit for the Cardinals, who we were just talking about a second ago. All right, hit the people with a parting shot, Bo. Tell the listening audience at home anything you want. What do you want to do? Give a shout out, something. End it on a high note, baby.
Man, we'll just say, listen, enjoy the draft. Make sure you follow Rick at the Bible. Check out his mock draft. I read it this morning. Very entertaining stuff. Stay tuned. I know he said Zach's coming on the show when these guys start doing the live stuff when the draft starts. But stick with these guys. And he mentioned get all the information. I mean, these guys are already working on 2023 for the draft stuff. So this is not some him-haw machine where these guys are waiting to find out what everybody else is doing. They're kind of laying the found work down that everybody else picks up and puts in their own repertoire. So, again, I encourage you guys to look into it, purchase it. If you really want to love the draft, if you've gone this far, take it to the next step. Really, really, really know what you're talking about. You want to be the smart guy at the water cooler, the smart girl at the water cooler? get what you need, come with Sam, get it, and then lo and behold, you'll look like a draft smarty.
How about that? Laying the foundation down, baby. We're building it up. I better get my cement shoes. For Bo Marchionte, Rick Saratella, all our chat room peeps and special guests today, we'll see you on the NFL Draft pregame. Coverage kicks off 7 p.m. Eastern time. In the meantime, check out NFLDraftBible.com, and I will see you over on the SI.com and right here tomorrow morning, everybody. Woo! We're out of here. Woo! Draft day, baby. Can't get enough. What? Get that.